Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? Let's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Spread. This is your host, Big Easel.
What up, man?
Jim's lost in West Virginia.
Yeah, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties right now, so he is recording the Steelers segment. We're not doing the recap from last week. We're doing the preview for the Steelers this week going up against
New York Jets.
The New York Jets, yes. And we're also not doing a line segment either. I guess we're just posting our picks on Facebook, but we'll get back. We'll get back on track at some point, hopefully soon.
Lost it.
Yeah, we've lost it for the next week at least. But this is our fantasy segment, and we do situational starters, sleepers, and deep sleepers. And we always start off with the situational starters. And so far this season for our situational starters, we are averaging 19.09 points per player. So that ain't bad. That's non-quarterbacks as well. And we don't have a quarterback in our situational starters this week. So let's get started. Who are you going to go with, man?
Well, I'm going to go with Travis Benjamin. He's been on my squad since day one. I think he maybe had one good game, if I can remember, like real good game where he was.
Yeah, he had a real big game. He had a couple good games.
Yeah, but it just seems to me like versus a matchup against Oakland, it seems like the ball is going to be thrown a lot and there's plays out there to be made.
Yeah, Oakland has the worst pass defense in football in terms of fantasy right now. They let up the most fantasy points to wide receivers. He's had at least 6 targets in every game so far this season, so he's being targeted consistently from Phillip Rivers. Now, last week he did have a poor performance, but you're right, man. He should have a huge bounce back this week against Oakland. And Antonio Gates could return in this matchup as well, which could help open things up for him. I'm going to go with Sterling Shepard at Green Bay. Now, they're another defense having trouble stopping wide receivers in fantasy, letting up the second most fantasy points to wide receivers. He also had his worst performance of his career, actually, considering he's a rookie this past week. But he had 3 straight good fantasy performances to start his career. That down performance last week was at Minnesota as well. So
tough place to play. Yeah, Sunday night, or was it Monday night? It was prime time.
Yeah, it was a primetime game. I can't remember, man. But they actually look like one of the top defenses right now, and they're shutting down everyone. I think he's in line for a big bounce-back game, just like Travis Benjamin is. And Green Bay allows over 300 yards per game in the air. I expect Green Bay to score a lot of points against the New York Giants as well, so I think Eli Manning's going to have to throw a good bit in this game. And Sterling Shepard's been consistent for him. One other guy we can mention here. This may be the last time we can use him.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man.
You got to.
He was, my last pick or my second to the last pick in fantasy, and I didn't take a defense, so I dropped him for a defense before the season started.
He's blown around in fantasy ranks like a plastic bag.
Yeah. If he goes big this week, though, he's getting into that must-start range. Steve Smith going up against Washington this week. They let up the 12th most fantasy points to wide receivers. He has back-to-back games now with 8 receptions and 11 targets. He's coming off his best game, 8 catches, 111 yards, and a touchdown. He's had 37 targets so far this season. That's through 4 games, so he's getting targeted a ton still, even with that slow start. But now he looks fully healthy. He looks like he is Joe Flacco's favorite target. And with this big week, he's a must-start going up against the Giants next week as well. So you're going to want to start him then, especially if he has another big week. All right, let's move on to our sleepers here. Our non-quarterback sleepers average 3.2 points per player, so that ain't bad as well. And our quarterbacks average 24.5. That's 2 quarterbacks so far this season. One got us 23, and the other got us 26.
What are you talking about? 3.2 points. That's not a lot.
13.2.
13, okay.
I might have said 3.2. Who knows?
Yeah.
But who are you going to go with, man?
Well, I'm going to shout out Big White Brian Hoyer. Got it done last week. He was comatose last week. No one even knew.
I had him in my daily.
Throw him in that daily lineup, and what did he give you last week?
20-some points. He was definitely a top 10 quarterback last week.
Nice.
But he's played so well so far through the first 2 games. I mean, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions in each of those games. Has over 300 yards in each of those games. It looks like Jay Cutler is going to be sitting on the bench for a while, and Brian Hoyer is going to keep the starting job.
Nice.
He's thrown a ton, too. Look, man, 85 pass attempts in 2 games. Now, here's the problem. Alshon Jeffrey's banged up. It does look like he's going to play, but he's questionable right now. Kevin White just went to the IR, so he's donezo.
Peace.
Zach Miller, you picked him up.
I need him.
He's actually questionable right now, but it does look like he's going to play. Eddie Royal was the one that was supposed to step up this week with Kevin White out. He's questionable. Didn't practice all week. Hasn't practiced Friday either, so it looks like he might not play. So, and if he doesn't, there's another guy, Cameron Meredith, who you could actually look at as a deep sleeper this week, although we're not going to mention him in the deep sleepers. This guy could step up and play a big role for Bobby Hoyer this week. And again, going at Indy, who hasn't been a good defense so far this year, I think Brian Hoyer's going to step up. I think Alshon Jeffrey's going to have a good game, and whoever is that second wide receiver is going to have a good game as well. I'm going to go with an Oakland Raiders running back, DeAndre Washington, going up against San Diego this week, who lets up the second most fantasy points to running backs this season. Now, Latavius Murray, he's questionable with a toe injury. So it looks like Washington would start if Murray misses. But even if Murray does play in this game, DeAndre Washington's going to have an expanded role because, again, Murray's wouldn't be completely healthy in that game. And even if you look, DeAndre Washington's been getting more and more playing time as the season goes along because he's really impressed his coaching staff so far. So it looks like he's going to get more and more playing time as the season goes along. He's a young guy here, and he might end up splitting time with Murray, but this is a good week to play him since Murray isn't completely healthy. Look, he has 23 carries and 147 yards this season, so you can see he's getting it done on the ground when he gets his limited chances. One other guy is San Diego wide receiver Tyra Williams. You talked about Travis Benjamin, obviously, going up against Oakland. We already mentioned Oakland's pass defense, one of the worst in the league, led up the most fantasy points to wide receivers so far. So play the receivers out there in San Diego. Play Benjamin and play Williams. Williams has been consistent, but he hasn't really blown up. He's got at least 9 points in fantasy each of the past 4 weeks.
PPR.
Believe it. 17 targets and 11 receptions over the last 2 weeks. Dontrell Inman stepped up last week. He could actually have a good game as well. Antonio Gates is coming back this week, and they got that other tight end as well, Hunter Henry, the young guy, who has looked pretty good in Antonio Gates' place. So Phillip Rivers has some weapons out there. None of them are Keenan Allen, obviously, but I'm playing San Diego receivers this week. And one other thing about him and all of San Diego's receivers is the schedule gets a lot tougher over the next 3 weeks. I actually think they play Denver twice in the next 3 weeks. Or next 3 games, I should say, maybe. There's probably a bye in there. All right. Let's move on to our deep sleepers. Our non-quarterback deep sleepers have averaged 13.55 points per player so far this season. Again, we only took one quarterback. It was Jay Cutler. He got hurt, had a terrible game. He had 3 points. So,
and we're done with him for life, too. He's cut.
Please believe. There's no quarterbacks in this segment either. Who are you going with, man?
Very deep here. We'll go with Chris Hogan just because, I don't know, Cleveland's garbage and maybe Tom Brady's back. He's going to light it up.
That's what I'm thinking, man. They brought Chris Hogan over thinking he could play in that slot role, and those little white boys with Tom Brady can get it done.
Frosty.
And this is a good matchup for Tom Brady to come back and for Chris Hogan as well. Now, like you said, he's been pretty much a letdown so far this season, but he did have a big week 1, 3 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown, but over the past 2 games, just 1 reception for 3 yards. But really, he's still playing, man. It's not like they put him on the bench or anything. He's still in the game. It's just the quarterback couldn't get him the ball. I think Tom Brady's going to come back, and Chris Hogan's going to rise in fantasy here over the next couple weeks.
Nice.
Although, they got Gronk, they got Edelman, they got Martellus Bennett, they got Malcolm Mitchell, and they also have James White in the backfield as well that's used in the passing game. So, there's a lot of targets out here for Tom Brady, but I think Chris Hogan can get involved and he can be a fantasy asset moving forward. I'm going to go with Tampa Bay Buccaneers tight end Cameron Brate. They're going up against Carolina. It's in Carolina. You'd think that's a tough matchup, but they have actually let up the 5th most fantasy points to tight ends this season and the 5th most to wide receivers, actually. So they haven't been doing their job so far this season. But really, since Tampa Bay cut Austin Seferian-Jenkins, my boy,
ASJ,
Cameron Brate has really stepped into a pretty big role, man. Look, 18 targets over the past 2 games, has 2 touchdowns in that span, 113 yards. Really, Vincent Jackson hasn't been doing much this season either. Cameron Brate is really the maybe 3rd option out there for Jameis Winston, possibly even the 2nd. They got Mike Evans, obviously, but the other guy, Adam Humphries, another white boy, he's actually stepped up and been playing very well so far. Had a down week last week, but that's coming after 2 pretty big weeks, and I think he's going to remain involved as well. That's another deep sleeper you can look at is Adam Humphries, but Cameron Brate, a tight end, man, I'm starting to think about picking him up. I know he's still out there in our league, and I do need a tight end. I picked up Antonio Gates, a guy you dropped earlier this season.
Caught him dumb with his old
But
ass.
again, if he doesn't play in this game, I think I'm going to drop him and pick up Cameron Brate and play him. And the last guy here, a wide receiver from the Los Angeles Rams, Brian Quick. He's going up against Buffalo this week. Now, it's not like Buffalo's a bad defense or anything. They've been playing great defense so far this season. But I've been on Brian Quick for a couple years now. He was good a few years ago, and then last year I expected him to be good, and they had no quarterback at all. He was actually injured for a while, so he never really got going. But he's back, and while he only has 4 catches over the past 2 weeks, he turned that into 122 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, yeah, he's doing it big out there. He's actually my favorite target out there, even with Tavon Austin and Kenny Brate. I think he's still out there as well. But, again, I think Brian Quick is Keenum's best option out there, and seeing his guy healthy and back in football, that's why I like this guy, man. He can do it big, and I think he can do it big again this week. I mean, really, they don't have many options out there, so I think Keenum would be smart to throw Brian Quick's way as often as he can. All right, that went 13 minutes. I'll give you one more, man. How about Sammy Coates this week, man? He's had his most targets of the season last week. He came up with another big game. I mean, he hasn't been doing it huge, but he gets those big plays. And finally, last week, I think it was 8 targets, 6 catches, targeted more than any other receiver in Pittsburgh. And the New York Jets have had problems stopping the pass so far this season. Darrelle Revis, I think, is not going to play in this game. So I think Sammy Coates can step up and be a good flex option this week.
Well, he'll obviously score more points than Michael Floyd did.
Let's hope so.
So
if you want a Steelers win, you better.
I mean, I started my fantasy week off with a big goose egg with Michael Floyd because, I had to play him.
Yeah, it sucks. I got a lot of buys this week, so I got to play some people I don't want to play too.
Yeah, that was a little disappointing.
I tell you what, I picked up Eddie Royal, put him in my flex position. We actually have 2 flexes. I put him in the second one, and if he goes, I like Eddie Royal. Pick him up and play him this week. But if he ends up not playing in his game, I might have to go look at that Cameron Meredith guy and throw him in there or something. Or maybe I'll pick up DeAndre Washington too. He's still out there.
Have you put together a daily squad yet?
I did put together a daily squad, but I cannot look at it here. I do know I have DeMarco Murray at running back and Jordan Howard. Those are my 2 running backs.
Okay.
I think I have Eddie Royal in at wide receiver, though. I may have to change that to Terrell Pryor because I got a couple bucks remaining. But that's it, man.
All right. That does it, fans, for Fantasy Week 5. We're going to keep it going. Internet, no internet. We'll find a way.
Yeah, we're finding a way to keep this going. I mean, we're not
Fantasy
doing all our
Wars.
segments right now. It's playoff baseball time as well. I'd like to do a segment on that at one point, but
I
we
would
can't
have
be
loved to
getting
seen one pitch of that baseball game.
Please believe it. Things are tough right now. We're going to keep the spread going, though. You can find us at BetTheSpread on Twitter. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/BetTheSpread. Facebook is facebook.com/BetTheSpread. And Bet Jim to win. That's the number 2. If you want to hit up Jim in West Virginia and hate on him for ruining the spread for the next week or 2.